Welcome to another episode of Star Maker Talk Show. And today's topic is the power of connection on Substack. And we've got our guest with us, the best person, one of the best people to talk with us about the power of connection is Elizabeth Cottrell. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. What a treat. I've been looking forward to this all week.
I don't reckon you've been looking forward to it more than me because I'm so glad. Excuse me, we've done this before. This is our second interview and live stream we've done.
It is. I
And
feel like we both kind of learned from the being in the trenches together early on.
we sure have. And it was probably about a year ago or something like that we first did the live video. And so I'm so happy to have you back on the show. Now, Elizabeth, just for those who aren't familiar with you yet, your Substack is the Heartspoken Note, and you've got one almost 2,000 subscribers on your Substack. Your best-selling book is titled Heartspoken: How to Write Notes That Connect, Comfort, Encourage, and Inspire. Now, in the green room, you said to me, there are as many reasons to be on Substack as there are people, but none of them matter if you're not connecting. So let's start there. Why is this so important?
Gosh, Mike, I don't. You could start answering that question from so many different angles, but the one that I usually think of, because I'm a biology major, is the research that's been done about on social scientists have studied and learned, and Dr. Brene Brown was the main person here, that we are hardwired for connection. We humans are hardwired. And in fact, she, in her study of thousands and thousands of people, those who are the most resilient, the most content, the most successful is a bad word because you can measure that so many ways, but certainly resilient and well adapted are those who have a network of connections, because when you are alone, you have lost that sense of belonging, that sense of somebody is there to help me if I need help. So connection is really, really important. And as I thought about that probably 15 years ago when I started my blog, I started thinking about the power of connection. And I kind of boiled it down for my own life as four essential connections. One was with a higher power, one was with myself, one was with others, and one was with nature. And I find that when my life feels like it's a little off track in any way, that I can always look at one of those and realize it needs a little work, needs a little shoring up. But of course, it's the power of connection with others that got me into thinking about notes and letters and reaching out. And what I'm finding is, oh goodness, sorry, I'm going to turn that down. What I'm finding is that no matter whether you are selling a product or a service or a ministry or a message, or even if you're trying to talk your husband into going on a vacation, you're selling something, and we might as well learn what those skills are. And I believe they all start with building relationships and connecting.
You've also said that um, no matter what your purpose of being on Substack or online, if you're a solopreneur, if you're not a solopreneur and you have no business desire or motivation, you're just on a platform like Substack to share your creativity. There still needs to be a connection, whether it's measured in dollars as a result of revenue and monetization. How specifically do we, if because not everybody who's on Substack is a solopreneur wanting to build a multi-billion-dollar business.
That's right.
So for those people, what's the measurement of connection?
I would say within Substack specifically, I would say it's the community building that we do in the notes, the people that respond to the things that you post in notes, certainly the comments to your articles that you post. And by the way, I just heard that Substack is wanting us to call them articles now instead of posts to differentiate them from the notes.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the joys for me has been having something that I've written resonate enough that somebody will take the time to write about it, to respond to it, to make a comment. And that is Substack has done a brilliant job of creating a platform that encourages that, that rewards that. Um, and there we can talk about all the different ways it does that. But I think even if you don't have a paywall, if you don't ever intend to turn a paywall on, there is something deeply satisfying about connecting with like-minded people.
And that's been going on for years, well before the internet, hasn't it?
Sorry, you froze there. What was that question?
Yeah, and because we're live, thanks, Elizabeth. Because we're live, anything can happen, and the technology can
Sure.
not go our way, and so the internet can become unstable for different reasons, which I think is what happened then. I was just saying that this the quality and the value of connection was happening hundreds, thousands of years before the internet, wasn't it?
Oh my goodness, of course, and that's why when you talk about being hardwired for connection, I mean it goes back to just the way our nervous system and our personalities are created from a cell. So yes, indeed, and of course, what's different is technology, and it's fascinating to me and smart, I think, on the part of whoever designs the Substack things, and we've all got beefs with Substack, but I think one thing they've done extremely well is to think about human nature and
Yeah.
to think about things that help people to create those communities. The sense of the reward, the test, being able to leave testimonials, being able to restack and comment and share, even to the point of being able to pick a sentence and turn it into a quote graphic and share that. I just think, and every single time that happens to me, and I have a reader that does that, it's like getting a hug. I mean, it's like
Mm.
it's getting a little message that says, I see you, I hear you, and what you have to say is of value to me. And it doesn't take very many people for me to, if I think I'm giving enough value to a few people, that'll keep me going for a long time.
You mentioned there that the value is in getting well, let's talk about the different ways on Substack. Since we're on Substack, you mentioned commenting on somebody's post or note, or restacking somebody's note or article, as they're now calling it, or the other ways that we can engage, the engagement strategies, if you like, and means. You mentioned to you, it's for you personally, it's like getting a hug and feeling a hug. I got a hug from you. Now, you may wonder, well, how in the heck did that happen? Because we're miles apart. You're somewhere in America and I'm in Australia. However, I do want to tell our viewers, and we do thank those on the live watching with us now, Elizabeth, and also for those watching the replay and listening to the audio on the replay. I received something from you totally unexpected, and it really blew my mind. I mean, talk about a hug, the feeling of a hug. You sent me something by snail mail. It was a simple postcard, and yet thank you for someone who just gave us the heart there. We really appreciate that. You sent me a postcard with a beautiful handwritten note on the back. Tell me about where that idea came from, and is this part of your heart spoken modus operandi?
It is, Mike. And thank you for asking, because it's a very, again, so many things happen in life serendipitously. But I had always, I mean, I am of the age that I was taught to write notes, and my mother wrote beautiful notes. My grandmother did, but I, thought of them as sort of good manners, good proper etiquette. But
Yeah.
yeah, but about 30 years ago, I received a letter from a stranger that made me realize it was way more than that. And it was a woman who had lost her son to suicide. And I didn't know the woman. She was a complete stranger, but I had written a sympathy note to to the woman that was engaged to this young man, and that woman shared my note with her future mother-in-law, and the woman wrote and said, "I've read your note 25 times, and it came at the most awful time in my life, and it was a lifeline." Well, Mike, that was like a light bulb. And from that time on, I began to pay attention. I began to pay attention to read the letters of others, famous letters that famous people had written. I began to pay attention to the letters that were written to me and notes. I began to be more thoughtful about not just saying what I thought I was supposed to say in a note, but to be thinking about what I wanted the other person to feel when they read my words. And that was the beginning of being interested in the topic, writing a little bit about it, published a few articles, and then COVID gave me the opportunity to have the time to write a book about it. So I did. But what surprised me so much. I knew there were people out there that still believed in the importance of a handwritten note, but what I did not realize was that people in sales, people in the nonprofit sector that were trying to raise money, realized that this could be a powerful connection tool that would set them apart. So my own sort of focus in the last year has really been, while I still write a lot for any kind of note writer, and I write about all things epistolary, stamps and stationery and pens, but I have really been learning myself and trying to mentor people that want to use it as a connection tool, not to make more sales, although, of course, that's the ultimate goal, but to build relationships with their customers, their prospects, their donors. And that is where I think there's just so much overlooked potential. People just forget about this old-fashioned thing that they didn't realize could really transform their relationships.
Elizabeth, sadly, you froze there on me. We got the gist of most video. Image is frozen. I don't know whether you can hear me right now. Can you, Elizabeth?
Now I can. You came back on. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Did I freeze on you?
oh, now I don't even see you.
Oh, yes. We've got some real tech issues here. We're terribly sorry to our viewers. And thank you, Jim. Jim's left a note there that you, Elizabeth, didn't freeze while Jim was watching. So it must be an issue at my side. I really need to have a look at this, but let's not let the technology stop us. I got most of what you were saying, Elizabeth, and especially the important part. And thanks again, Jim, for letting us know. Jim, how are we both coming across now on the live stream? Is Elizabeth clearly visible and I'm clearly visible? And while Jim hopefully gives us the thumbs up or the thumbs down, Aussie Internet. Oh, dearie me. Oh, you are so right. I think either that or I've got to actually, Elizabeth. Can I just say about doing live streams and doing such as I'm doing now? So I'm on Wi-Fi. Are you using Wi-Fi on your phone as well? Yeah.
I am.
And so I'm quite removed. Like I'm at the other end of the house from the modem. What about you?
No, I'm right near it.
Right next to it. I've got to experiment with moving closer to the modem. Anyway, I got the important part of what you shared with us, Elizabeth, was the story of you sharing that note with that sad situation in the family and the impact that had on the reader who conveyed that back to you, and that was an epiphany for you those years ago. And you've written the book Heartspoken about, let's just read the title again, Heartspoken, How to Write Notes. Not notes, that wasn't written as in notes on Substack, was it?
Long
No.
before
It's,
Substack. Yeah.
yeah, handwritten notes, how to write notes that connect comfort. Well, I suppose that note that you sent to that person was a comfort to her. It was a
Mhm.
her, wasn't it?
It was. It was.
Yeah. To encourage and inspire. the handwritten note you sent me via postcard. So it came all the way stamped from America to our humble little home here in Australia in the letterbox. And I really couldn't believe it. Look, I just want to tell you, no, I want to tell you, Elizabeth, and I want the viewers to know too that, oh, good, Jim. Thank you. All good now. So glad to hear that. Appreciate you letting us know, Jim. I want to let you know that my heart response to your postcard was out of proportion to the size of the postcard and what I was actually holding, if that makes sense. Totally out of proportion.
Well,
And I think you can speak to that.
I can. I mean, I've okay. I have just retired after 34 years on a bank board, and I was 10 years as the chair of the board. And I have received some notes in the last 2 weeks from employees that I didn't even know whether that we had met in person, but they told me how much that my leadership had meant to them, how that much the women loved having a female at the as board chair. I mean, you do the time that it took them to write those notes. I mean, my sense of appreciation and my heart being full was just out of proportion. And you just said it so well, to the effort that it took for them to write it. The fact that they even took the time to think about doing it is a
Yeah,
gift in itself.
yeah,
But so here we have a little paradox and we have a little irony, and that is that we are talking about Substack, which is an online digital format. And so my bigger picture of connection certainly is not just notes, but if even if it were, there's all kinds of I'm basically I have to ask people if I want to write to them. I have to ask them if they would be willing to share their snail mail
yeah,
address. um,
yeah.
Now here in the United States we have there's a website called whitepages.com, and sometimes if we know their name and the city they're in, we can get their snail mail address. But then you've got to be careful about not wanting to be too like you're a stalker or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But so professionally, though, often you can find out where they work and then you can send them a note. And I have even for an like if I read a book that just moves me, I want to write a note to the author to tell them that. Well, often, especially if it's somebody well known, there's no way I'm going to get an address. But I have written to agents. I have written to publishers. Sometimes I have the satisfaction of getting some feedback to know they got it. So I do have to, you can't just pick up a phone book or call Yellow Pages anymore and or call the directory operator and an address like you used to. So it's a little different game. But I still try to send notes to people, but
You know what, Elizabeth? There's a bit of synergy and synchronicity happening here because not that long ago I was talking on on an interview on the show with Casey Demchak, former freelance copywriter who specialised in, among other things, writing postcard for postcard marketing. And when I got yours, I thought to myself instantly, apart from the gratitude and how blessed I felt by receiving it, how could I do this too? Because I thought if I get this reaction from Elizabeth's postcard, then I wonder if somebody else that I sent a postcard to would get a similar reaction out of proportion to the size of the postcard materially, but the sentiment, wow, just a heart spoken message that blows your mind and heart. And I thought, well, and the exact point you made about the security and the potential concerns that somebody might have, for example, oh, may I have your address, please? I'd just like to send you something. I thought to myself to get around that, do you have a business address that I could send something to you? And that covers the concerns about private address. And if they say no, I wouldn't take it any further. I wouldn't pursue it.
that
But
is
if they
that is
said,
a
oh,
yeah. That's a
yeah, you
beautiful
like that?
that's a beautiful workaround. The other
Yeah.
the variation of that is I'll say, I've written you a thank you note for the wonderful book that you wrote. I'd love to put it in the mail, but if you'd rather I just scanned it and posted it here on LinkedIn or whatever, I will do that. So I give people an option there.
Excellent. There is a comment here. Jeffrey Veal, thanks Jeffrey for joining us. Um, Jeffrey made a fortune from double-sided postcards. It was very big. Postcard marketing was very big. I don't know, 20 more years ago or thereabouts. But thanks, Jeffrey, for that. Now, I've got
And
some notes here.
let me just
Go
comment
right
on that, though. I think Jeffrey's got a really interesting point there, and that is, why did they do so well? It's because they stood out. They stood out.
Yes.
And so now what stands out? A handwritten note. And postcards still stand out. I mean, I still, will often read that before I'll read another piece of printed mail. But when it's something that's
Well,
unique, it makes a difference.
and if you've got, I don't know, the days of a stack of mail, I don't know what it's like in America, but here in Australia, we the only mail we get these days is a bill.
Yep.
Uh, that's it. Uh, and so on the day that yours came in and I, excuse me, opened, there were three bills in your postcard. Well, which do you think got looked at
No
first?
wonder you liked it so much.
Okay, so you mentioned that uh, creating a connection with others. Okay, let's talk generally, not just on Substack, but generally. Uh, you mentioned in the green room about guru-driven hype and how what you're on about is to the polar opposite of that. Talk to that.
Well, and I don't like to downgrade or badmouth anybody, but I just, in terms of creating a community or finding your peeps, finding your kindred spirits. Um, you can't do that by just throwing the spaghetti on the wall. You can search for keywords. You can that mean a lot to you. Obviously, I have searched for handwritten letters, handwritten notes. Um, uh, Relationship building. You can do that, and then you begin to sort of see who's doing what in those niches, and those are the people that you can target then for following them, commenting on what they've done, giving them a boost or restack or testimonial if you think it's appropriate. But I have found often that when somebody says comments on something I've done and then I comment back, sometimes that's all it takes to sort of begin. And probably that's how you and I started. Although I think it was the group we were in, but at first, um, a- and Mike, you have to care about people. If you don't care about people, it's going to be very difficult for you to to build relationships. But I would submit that most people that are sensitive enough to be writing and to be communicating are already halfway there in terms of.
I want to touch on that. You've touched on something I wanted to ask you. If we have a viewer now or the replay, and they're sold. You've sold them on the idea of connection via some communication note, whatever. And they think, okay, that's a strategy, right? That's a strategy. And then they just go strategy with it without the, um, how did you put it, Elizabeth? The genuineness. What was it you said?
Well, caring, just
Caring, that's right. If the caring is absent and it's all just strategy and contrived, how successful that's going to be? How successful will that be?
and there, let that goes right back, Mike, to the comment you made about the gurus. If the gurus are all about numbers, and there are things you can do that'll boost your numbers. But if you want a genuine community that is genuinely interested in you, and that you attract people for whom you have an affinity, then it's a much slower game, but it's much
Yeah.
more satisfying. And there's so many ways to express that, and I've just been surprised. And usually it goes beyond Substack. So if somebody's doing work that I really admire, I will probably follow them on LinkedIn as well.
Oh,
um,
yes.
and try to connect, and depending on what platforms you're on. But I don't multitask as well as I used to, so I've cut back on how many places I'm showing up. But you nailed it. The strategy. is it's nice to understand that it can be a strategy, but there's got to be a heart behind it. And my mantra is written or spoken, words from the heart will never fail you. And
Oh, yes.
and that brings up something that people often misconstrue for me is they think everything I'm talking about is handwritten. And while there's no question that I think handwritten makes you stand out, my big message is the heart spoken part, because you can type a message, print it out, put a little, great to see you last week and your signature, and put it in the mail, and it still has way more impact than an email.
Yeah, totally get that. I like Jim's comment there too, Elizabeth, in the chat. A card without the caring is careless. I like that. Very well put,
Oh, I
Jim.
love that. Oh,
Isn't it?
that's
Uh,
terrific.
we, I should write that down somewhere or take a screen grab of it. A card without the caring is careless. Good one, Jim. You should be in this business too. Jim's also in the business that we're in. And all right, so let's just talk about then specifically, come back to Substack then, and the digital creator, the digital entrepreneur, the digital solopreneur who is creating content because they, excuse me, they want to monetize it. They do have a business model, and they are aiming to generate income, maybe enough to as a full time income. We don't know. There are people on Substack earning full time incomes. So they're listening, they're watching, and they're thinking this is something. It's almost like, I think, Jim, you were talking about this recently in a post about the value of follow up, or the damage to a business model with the lack of follow up. I'm sure it was you, Jim. And follow up is the perfect pathway for connection. It was my mentor in marketing, Elizabeth, was Dan Kennedy, and he would harp on about, you know the name,
I
and
do.
he would harp on ad nauseum about how follow up is the missing component to most marketing systems. You're talking about the importance of connection. Connection is a part of follow up. It actually made me think more about it, as it's doing right now. Where do you think on Substack is the most, okay, so we're talking business now, we're talking about monetization, revenue. Where is the most potential for connections on Substack in your experience, do you think, Elizabeth?
I do think, and a lot of the gurus will say this, but I do think that the notes has been in the last year a place where people are connecting and feeling like they're getting to know each other. Um, and again, I was in a group one time. Actually, it was a bank board, and we were trying to decide where to build a branch bank. And one of the men said, "If you want to go hunting, you better go where the ducks are." And what they meant by that, of course, was, you don't have time to comment and respond to every person that shows up in your feed. And that's why I talked about looking for people that are in not necessarily the same niche that you're in, but in something related. And fortunately for me, communication and relationship building is something almost everybody ought to be thinking about. Um,
Oh,
so I
nicely
think
put.
notes, the answer to your question, I think it's notes, and I think it's regularity, showing up and being seen,
Yeah.
and service mentality, providing
Yes,
value.
yes. Yeah, the Wayne Dyer mantra, "How may I serve? How may I serve?" He would preempt his writings and his videos and his lectures and any work he did with an audience, one or many, how preempted with the question, how to his higher power, how may I serve? How may I serve? Taking the focus off himself and putting it on the person or the audience and what they can get out of his presence. May I add to, and can I concur and then add and supplement to your suggestions there, Elizabeth? In my own experience, I've found that the connection has been most rich in the direct messages, in DMs on Substack, and because they're private, they're personal, and they're very direct. DM, direct message. And so I would encourage our viewers and listeners to, if they're not using the direct message part of Substack, to subtly invite people to join you in the DM to advance a message that may have already occurred in the comments. Take it into the DM. In fact, I can tell you outright that, Elizabeth, I have customers, because I also sell PDFs on another platform, and I know that a lot of my sales have come from connecting with people on the Substack platform and mentioning my products, not hard selling out of context, but, oh, okay, so this is the issue or problem or you're wanting to solve, or I have something on that you might want to look at. Here it is. So yeah, DMs, apart from
Oh,
what you've mentioned there as
I
well.
am so glad you mentioned that because I am sort of only beginning to realize that I have not used that to full effect. And when I think though about the few instances when I have, you're absolutely right. As long, and you use the word yourself, as long as you use it appropriately and after there's been a connection somewhere else. Otherwise, out of the blue, it feels unnatural. But
Yeah.
the other thing I really wanted to say, because you exhibit this in spades, that I have found in common with people that I follow and that I enjoy being with on Substack, and that is generosity. You have exhibited ever since I've known you a sense of generosity about being willing to share your experience, share your best practices. You just recently put all your content on a terrific sale so that people could avail themselves of it. And I see other people that I respect in Substack exhibiting generosity in a lot of ways. They'll go, somebody will comment on a note with a question, and they'll go to a lot of trouble to answer the question. Or like you said, take it from there to DM if they, particularly if it's at all sensitive. So that generosity is a big can really make a difference.
Generosity from a heart spoken connection. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it, Elizabeth. And let's just, since we're on a live stream video, let's talk about the value in connecting via video, such as we're doing now, as apart from the spoken word. Jamie, thanks for joining us. Jamie, let's just say, Jamie's mentioned in comments here, the DMs need to be genuine. Yes, we both agree. Don't send a generic message to everyone. I've had a few of those. Look, and Jamie ignores them. Jamie, Elizabeth, you've had them. I've had them. I think everybody who's joined us and watching this will have been spammed by messages out of the blue. There's no context to the relationship, and so you're right, Jamie. We're not talking about that. There needs to be. You mentioned it earlier, Elizabeth. Genuineness. I can't remember the exact word you used, but genuineness comes to mind, and within context as well. I mean, getting the postcard I got from you just out of the blue, if we had not had our connection and our relationship that we'd built, it would have been nice, but it would have been like, oh wow, I wonder why she sent that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
but in, yeah, got it.
No, exactly,
So
exactly.
so the value that you're giving our viewers now, Elizabeth, simply by agreeing to come on video, okay. So what do you think? What do you think viewers and our audience at large are getting in the connection value by seeing you on screen in the flesh, so to speak, and talking with your spoken voice as opposed to your written word?
Great question. And the importance that I put on it is reflected in the fact that the only post I have ever pinned to the top of my page is a video that allows me to explain what Heartspoken is. Now, I think that until we have seen somebody, it certainly helps just to hear their voice, like if you're listening to a podcast, but to be able to see and hear someone, and you see that they're real, you see that they're not perfect, that they're whatever. But it just lends a lot of credence, I think, to who they are and what their message might be. Because unfortunately, we're so accustomed to hearing the awful stories of scamming and spamming and phishing and hacking and all of that, that when you can in some way provide a little authenticity through video, then you've gone a long way towards, and it's way overused, but the whole phrase "know, like, and trust" I think is the core.
Well, it's well used because it's very, very valid, and you're right, it is well used. Know, like, and trust. And the other thing I'd add to that, Elizabeth, right now is that now I don't know how much of AI you use in your writing, whether it's 0 or 20%. Do you use AI at all in your writing?
Not to write. I use it to edit and proofread, and I use it
Yeah.
more for brainstorming.
Yeah, me too. So, for those who may use AI to assist them with their writing, there's one thing that going on a video like this does that AI simply cannot compete with, and that's the authenticity of showing up live or even recorded, but putting yourself, your face, and your voice and your message, and the authenticity of being real and being yourself, not being some cardboard cutout perfect view. That's the benefit of being on a video or a live stream such as we're doing now, Elizabeth. Uh, Let me just make sure I've got everything covered here so far, Elizabeth, because I had a few notes, and it's difficult to look at you and look at the camera and look at the notes at the same time. Would
Oh,
you excuse me?
flattery will get you everywhere.
So, Elizabeth, what we've covered is that your Substack publication is the Heartspoken Note. You've got almost 2,000 subscribers. Your best-selling book is Heartspoken: How to Write Notes That Connect, Comfort, Encourage, and Inspire. We've covered the guru aspect. Uh, Snail mail is the uncommon connection. We've talked about the value of connecting via video, whether it's solo, talking straight to camera. You mentioned you've got your first post if someone when somebody, not if, when somebody visits your publication, the pinned post is a video. Did you say? Is that talking straight to camera? Or, yeah, so it's a solo talking. That's to be encouraged. And what have I got here? Yeah, we covered that. The only thing to ask you then, because I always say this, Elizabeth, that time does fly when you're having fun, and we're almost at the end, and I'm respectful of your time. Where should people go if they want to know more about your whole heart-spoken message? Look at how they can get your book. Where do they go?
Thank you so much, Mike. Heartspoken.com is my website, and they can pretty much find it all right there. And they can look me up on Substack too. But heartspoken.com has it all. And I just so appreciate your having me on. And I feel like your message, what I have appreciated from watching you now for well over a year, is that you're not afraid to pivot. You learn, you experiment, you do it in front of everybody, which I think is terrific. Because if you think about it, when people that are afraid to do video, for instance, a lot of them are the same people that tell me, well, I don't write notes because I don't know what to say because I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing. Well, guess what? If you think that way, that's not about them. You should be thinking about the other person. If you're worried about that, you're thinking about yourself. And I would submit that when we really think about how can we serve that other person, how can we transform their lives in some tiny way, then it begins the fear kind of dissolves, and it's easier to get in front of them either on paper or on video.
So important. Again, thank you for those kind words, and so important, Elizabeth. When we fall into the trap, and let's acknowledge that it's quite human to think along these lines, particularly if new to the media or to the idea of appearing on camera and talking to camera. It's very similar, don't we know it, to the greatest fear in the world, the fear of public speaking. And going on camera and talking to camera is very aligned to that. And so it is a common fear, but you hit the nail on the head. If we can get out of our own heads about being about performance, it's not about performance, it's about connecting. And again, I repeat my favourite mantra that Wayne Dyer would use before any of his public work: "How may I serve?" And be guided by the message that comes because of the connection you have with a higher power or spirituality. What is your, by the way, I'm just intrigued, and I do want to finish on this. You mentioned those four important parts, higher power being the first. Can you just mention again those other three?
Sure. I call them the four essential connections of my life. My connection with a higher power, my connection with myself, that's self knowledge, self awareness, self
Yeah.
discernment, connection with others, and connection with nature.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
the
lovely. I'm going to include.
the natural world around us is so therapeutic in so many ways, and if we don't get enough of it, it takes a toll on our health, I think.
Oh, that is so right, Elizabeth. I love that. I'm going to include that in the show notes for our viewers watching live or who may follow up and watch the replay. But for those who are watching the replay, I'm going to include those four in the show notes. And Elizabeth, what can I ask then? What is your belief in who is your higher power?
Well, I'm a Christian, but I have lots of doubts like anybody else. And so I would say I'm a Christian because I believe in what Christ taught. I don't, not sure I believe everything everybody says about Jesus Christ, but I am a Christian and Episcopalian. And I find more in common with other religions and other faiths than I used to think as a young person. I'm the older I get, the more I realize that there's a common thread throughout humanity that binds us all together, and we better be looking for that because this world needs it.
Well, look, and pardon me for asking that question without notice, but I
That's
did
okay.
want to thank you very much, Elizabeth, and I do love your answer, and I think the message there in that answer is that there is a thread there about the connection we have with humanity, and it is acknowledging that connection that we have with all others and all things that puts us in a position to more naturally connect in genuine ways, and that's why I wanted to touch on that, because it's meaningful to me, and I have a shared belief in that too, Elizabeth. Well, what's your final words then? What's your final words? We've got your website, heartspoken.com. Oh, I do want to actually encourage our viewers and our listeners to do two things. I do want you to go to heartspoken.com and check out Elizabeth's website and all of the tabs there and the information that she's got, her blog, her book, and the other services that she offers. And I do want you to subscribe to Elizabeth if you're not already subscribed, because what she sends out in her posts and her newsletter, it's just encouragement, it's inspiration, it's comfort, and it's connection. And that's what Elizabeth's about. So I hope you'll do that. Elizabeth, parting words before we let you go? Oh, Jim. Jim, thank you. Jim just subscribed to Elizabeth's Substack.
You did,
Fantastic,
yes.
Jim.
Thank you so
I'm
much. Thank you so much. No, I just have to say, before you can sell, you have to connect, and whether written or spoken, words from the heart will never fail you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Star Maker Talk Show. And to our viewers who have been with us live, thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating with your chats. We appreciate it. And if you're watching the replay and the podcast, we appreciate you taking the time to watch in and listen as well. So until next time, this is Mike Searles signing off. Be good to
Thank you.
yourself and be good to others. Bye for now.